Waste to Water Sports crew, ahoy! And how is everybody doing? Welcome along to another little catch up with the old Panther. Old Panther, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me back.
Of course, always welcome. Oh, old Panther, we've got a few things to discuss tonight, but first and foremost, as we always do, well, we'll check out the chat room first, see if anybody's lurking about. We see Geordie Aussie out there. Geordie Aussie, ahoy! Cheers, mate. Channel member, Geordie Aussie. Now, what we always touch on at the start of these shows is we just get you to reflect on how the Panthers season's going. Now, it's been a wild ride this year so far, and it looks like that wild ride is going to continue. But I guess first of all, we should check, because this is what we always check in on week to week, finals prospects. I mean, you'd have to be feeling pretty good about finishing in the top 8 at the very least and making the finals once again this year, correct?
Absolutely. Wasn't looking that good a few weeks back, was it?
No, what was it, 10 or 12 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Plum last on the bottom of the table, getting written off by everybody in
Pretty
this
much.
chat room included. I was being told that I was delusional for thinking that the Panthers would still make the playoffs from last spot, as they were at the time, and now here we are. They pushed the competition favourites to Golden Point, which I think is a nice little segue into one of the topics that we want to talk about tonight, because there's a lot of debate going on around it. Now, I'm not going to say anything. We haven't pre-discussed it in detail anyway. We might have hinted on a thing or two. And I like to keep it that way so that we can come into these shows fresh without any sort of influence or decision being made going into it, if that all makes sense. So I am going to throw it straight over to you with this lead in, because it seems like there's a misunderstanding around what's actually happened in the recent Storm versus Panthers game. There seems to be a misunderstanding as to what actually transpired around the decision that was made. Of course, I'm talking about the controversial call at the back end of the game, and I use air quotes because, I mean, to the letter of the law, it was pretty clear cut. But what say you, old Panther?
Well, I agree that Harry Grant, he played to the interpretation of the rules, and but I also reckon he did a pretty good job at milking. Fairly blatant that he threw his arm out to grab Moses Leota.
Mm-hmm.
But also the other thing, unfortunately for Moses, he took one step. I think perhaps if he hadn't taken that one step forward, that might have changed things. Yeah, Harry Grant, he played within the interpretation of the rule as it stands now, so got the job done, didn't he?
Well, see, that's interesting because you've done what people do.
What?
In this situation? They bring up Harry Grant took a dive. Harry Grant could have stripped naked in the middle of the field. His part in all this is relevant. The penalty was for Moses Leota being in the wrong spot at the wrong time. Harry Grant always seems to get brought up first in the equation, but for me, he's not even part of this.
Well, there we'd have to disagree.
Well, that's what the rules are. You can't be in the running line of the kick chaser. So Moses Leota doesn't even need to make contact with Harry Grant for it to be a penalty. I mean, we don't have to like it, but that's what the rule is. Yeah. So I'm not asking if if you think it's a good rule or not. What I'm asking people is, was it a penalty? Which of course it absolutely was, and it was a penalty before Harry Grant even took a dive, which he clearly did. I don't think anybody's arguing that he didn't. He clearly took the penalty. But do you know what I always say about milking?
Yeah, what?
You can't milk it without the cow there. And yes, I'm not calling Moses Leota cow, by the way. No, I'm just saying in this representation, Moses Leota is the cow.
that opens up a whole new can of worms, because where does he stand? He was in a position to take the next hit up if the hit up was on.
Well,
Where does he stand?
Well, I'm very, very glad you asked me that, old Panther, because I have got our old friend, the telestrator, ready to roll. Would you like to see some of?
Absolutely.
Would you like to see some of what I've found as revolves around this incident? Let's just shift you over there so you're in screen. All right. So this is obviously the part that we want to jump straight to. The lead up to the sequence of play that has caused all the conjecture. And we can take a look at a few things. So let's just play it on here for as long as I can without risking any potential copyrights from the NRL. So the game is tied. For those who might have been living under a rock, by the way, and not actually seen this and knowing what's going on. So this is what's happened. Panthers and Storm all locked up at 18 apiece. It's down to field goal time. So the Panthers are in possession. Dylan Edwards makes a nice little break. Steps off the right boot. He's got Mitch Kenny running in support. And inside the opposition 20-meter line, they're now going to set up for an attempted drop goal. And this is where it all starts to get a little bit fun, because if we put a player highlight on, it's even zoomed back a long way for me at this particular stage, but we have Nathan Cleary standing back here, getting ready to take the shot at field goal. He's standing back on the 30-meter line there. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Moses Leota is standing there right next to the play the ball area. And we'll see as this plays out if I've picked the right spot in the sequence. So, yes, Dylan Edwards in there. Yes, okay. So, now, I want to highlight a few people here. So, obviously, Nathan Cleary, who's going to receive the ball, and he's going to be taking the drop goal. Moses Leota, who you can already see him starting to move left as this frame is ready to commence. That's a big no-no. But I also want people to keep an eye on Blaise Talangi there. Blaise Talangi, the Panthers 5'8", who is just lurking on the opposite side of Nathan Cleary. So basically, right here, the offense has already been committed, with Moses Leota positioning. Easy for me to say. Hang on, where's my sound effect?
Me fail English? That's impossible.
So the offense has already been committed, and this is what I was talking about. So when it got to the situation where the bunker has had a look, here is Harry Grant, who is now putting in the chase, and you can see a pretty clear cut. Whoops. Oh, well, that wasn't supposed to happen. There's no players there. We'll get rid of those. No, go away. I might have to try that again. But anyways, what I wanted was a line. I wanted to be able to draw a line. There we go. So there's the Harry Grant's foot, the Nathan Cleary's left foot, which is the one he's going to pivot off. I mean, it's pretty clear cut. The offense has already been committed right there. It is now up to Moses Leota to remove himself from this position. And this is why, because the question has been raised, well, what's he supposed to do? Where's he supposed to go? This is why I've highlighted Blaise Talangi. So if we play through, keep an eye on the Panthers number 6 in the background there, who immediately starts backing up away from the area. And if we go back just a couple of frames, go back to that sequence. So once again, I'll just highlight. Now ignore Nathan Cleary, ignore Harry Grant. I'll just highlight Moses Leota, and I'll highlight Blaise Talangi, and the difference in the reaction. Moses Leota, who's already committed an offense right now, makes it even worse for himself by clearly stepping across to the left. Well, what's he supposed to do? Blaise Talangi is well aware of the situation that's about to unfold and immediately starts backpedaling out of the vicinity like every smart player should do. Boy, I'm in the way. I've got to get out of the way or I'm going to get penalised. Moses Leota made it 100 times worse for himself, obviously, by blatantly stepping across into the line of Harry Grant. Whether Harry Grant milked it or not, which he clearly did, you can't milk it without the cow being there, as I said. And yeah, unfortunately, we don't have to like the rule, and the rule came back to haunt the Panthers on this occasion. The rule worked out very well for them last year against the Storm when Nathan Cleary milked the exact same play. This year, it's gone against them. We don't have to like the rule, but them's the rules. Burko, ahoy! Any pushback to that?
Well, then after all that, I happened to have a look at Brad Fittler's take on the case, and he reckons that Harry Grant didn't take the shortest possible route towards Nathan Cleary, that he's actually headed towards Moses Leota. So
well, I just highlighted there the line from Harry Grant's feet straight to Nathan Cleary's foot. I mean, it's not up to Moses Leota doesn't dictate where Harry Grant goes. Harry Grant shouldn't have to decide left or right. As soon as you position yourself, I mean, look, I'm not saying I like the rule, but I'm saying that's the rule. There's no argument.
Well, there is an argument.
Well, no.
I disagree with you.
Well, there's
because
there's not an argument because
Harry Grant made a defensive decision, and it came out better for him.
But it was a defensive decision that he shouldn't have had to make because the player's not meant to be there.
Well, again, where are they supposed to be? If he's going to stand there ready for a hit up, you know. You're saying they should all move out of the way and let the marker have his way.
That's the rule.
What, they should all stand back and let a marker run through?
Yeah, you're not allowed to position yourself.
I don't think that's the interpretation of the rule at all.
It is 100% the rule. It was brought in. It was brought in specifically, funnily enough, to stop the Panthers from doing it.
Well, I don't think it was brought in for that particular instance. I think it was brought in for players standing next to the ruck, and Moses Leota wasn't standing next to the ruck.
No, he was standing in the
away,
directly in between the defensive line and Nathan Cleary, getting ready to take the pot at drop goal. So that's where the offence was created. Grace says it's obstruction every day of the week. The refs are not consistent, just like the Warriors try where King Tonga was taken out but not called. H. Simon, ahoy mate. H. Simon says apparently Mitchell Moses has been guilty of this as well. But again, in this instance, we're not even discussing the milking because, yeah, he blatantly took a dive. But as I was pointing out during the call of the game, that's not where the offence was committed. If Moses Leota just backed up like Blaise Talungi did, we wouldn't even be having the discussion.
Or if he'd moved forward further.
The ref's been inconsistent is why there's this backlash anyway. Well, that's a nice little segue into what we were talking about earlier, isn't it? About consistency, about key performance indicators that the referees have to abide by, and the skewing of certain stats, skewing of certain calls to fall into line with particular KPIs. And that's why you get games that are already over. In the final 5 minutes, they start to even up the penalty. They just make up penalties so that it evens up the statistics a little bit at the back end of the contest. Like, we see that happen. That's not even a conspiracy theory. That's just a very well-known thing. So, yeah, there's definitely an instance where that happens. So, anyways, that's all I wanted to talk about on that because, as I said, there's really no discussion to be had in terms of the penalty. But, it does, moving beyond the penalty, it does bring up all the conversations about milking and at the end of the day, if the officials just get it right in the first place, and I'm not necessarily now talking about this particular instance, but I'm talking about milking has crept into the game so much that we see players staying down now after a questionable hit to wait for the bunker to intervene and all that sort of thing. So we're seeing it, really, it's gone crazy in terms of that. Geordie Aussie wants to know thoughts on DCE's future. Yeah, well, isn't it funny how certain players, these things just seem to follow them. These sorts of controversies. I don't know whether you want to call it controversy, but I mean, old Panther, you might remember DCE was, of course, at the center of the backflip around a contract going to the Titans. That was all around DCE. And now there's like, is he going to the Roosters? Well, apparently there's not even a contract. But it seems like it's pretty common knowledge that DCE is off to the Roosters. Now there's talk that the Roosters might realize that they've got a bit of a lemon, so they're not that interested. But Nick Politis, is that his name? Nick Politis has come out and said, yeah, look, we'll never renege on a deal. But apparently there's no contract in place, so was it just a verbal deal? Terry Evans isn't coming out and saying anything. He's kept very, very silent on the whole thing. I just want to see out my time here at Manly first. But isn't it interesting that certain players just seems to follow them everywhere? There was even controversy around, controversy might not be the right word, but conjecture, I suppose, around DCE when it came to State of Origin. Like, each year, is he available? Is he not? When's he going to retire from representative football? Something about the bloke, isn't there?
Yeah.
This stuff just follows him from year to year. They actually asked Gordon Tallis on NRL 360, and they said, would the Titans have any interest in him? And he just kind of, he wouldn't give a straight answer, but I think the smirk kind of told it all. The smirk of, yeah, we haven't really still forgiven him around these parts. Speaking of decisions around playing futures and whatnot, I'm very interested to know, because old Panther, you're a bit of a traditionalist, I would dare say, in some respect, when it comes to what we're about to talk about, and that is not necessarily Payne Haas is the reason why this has come about. Is Payne Haas has apparently now made himself available for Samoa, turning down selection for the Kangaroos. Now, I mean, back in your day, this just wouldn't have happened. Back in your day, this wouldn't have happened, would it?
Well, no, it wasn't. It wasn't even any talk about it. But the precedent has been set, hasn't it? The players like Stephen Crichton and Jerome Luai, they play State of Origin, but then they play for Samoa. Or others play for Tonga. The precedent's been set. The original intention of State of Origin seems to have been blurred now, and look, if they're fair dinkum about expanding the game into Pacific Islands, then they probably have to allow this to happen. From my point of view, I wouldn't like it, but the way it is. I think if they're going to expand, they've got to allow this sort of thing to happen. It's a bit of a worry though when there's another young bloke apparently played one test match for New Zealand 2017, and he's not allowed to play State of Origin at all.
Yeah. Even
though I think he was born and raised over here. I don't recall the name. It starts with F.
Oh, okay.
but he's obviously got Kiwi blood in him somewhere, but he was born over here, and that's ruled him out.
Yep. Well, and that's the thing. Like Tier 1 nations, that's where they've drawn the line. Apparently, yes. John Michael, ahoy, mate. Yeah, so that's where they've drawn the line. I think I mean, a decision has to be made at some point, right? Shouldn't really be up to the NRL to save international rugby league. There should be some sort of, I'm sure there probably is some sort of governing body. I mean, the NRL doesn't own league globally, does it? I know that they're interested in doing so. That's why they started having these talks about taking ownership of the English Super League. So they're definitely interested in owning the entirety of rugby league across the globe, but which, honestly, let's be honest, doesn't spread very far. But I digress. But that's the thing. It has to be a decision. The NRL, it's not necessarily up to them to strengthen World Rugby League. But ultimately, that's what it comes down to. A choice does have to be made, because if they start saying, well, look at the quality of players that are now choosing to represent these different nations, well, let's lock them out of State of Origin. State of Origin is still viewed as the pinnacle of the game. Outside of a grand final, most players, that's what they aspire to. What you're going to do is you're going to kill off Tonga and you're going to kill off Samoa. And all the young kids that are coming through now becoming interested in rugby league and possibly 10, 15 years down the track competing in the Pacific Islands with rugby union. I mean, probably not going to happen, but at least there's more of a chance if they allow these big name players to play and make the nations competitive, right? So got to be a decision at some point, and whilst I would completely understand the NRL's stance for locking down State of Origin and looking after Australia's best interests, because as I said, as it stands right now, it's not up to them to be responsible for strengthening World Rugby League, but at the same time, if they don't, who is? I honestly don't know. Who is? Who is the, like, we know that in rugby union, for example, it's owned and operated by a big corporate umbrella. It used to be the IRB, it's now just World Rugby. And they get final say essentially over everything that happens in rugby in the world. Oh, the AR youth wants to do this. Oh, you think you're going to do that? Well, you've got to clear it with World Rugby first. Is there even such a thing in rugby league?
Well, they do have an international body, don't they?
Because
the international rules are different. So that we saw that play out in the World Club Challenge and the like.
But do we know who it is? Like
I'd have to check that out.
It
maybe
seems
somebody that knows.
Yeah, maybe someone in the chat can help us out there, because it seems so hidden and not like World Rugby where we just know. It seems very, very secretive, like an Illuminati type situation. John Michael with the $7.99 super chat. Thank you, mate. Very much appreciate the continued support.
The rugby league has changed over the years. When you talk about back in my day, I remember that there was certain pathway you went through. If you played in the main, back in those days, it was the main Sydney comp in the New South Wales Rugby League, and their first representative fixtures were designed as more or less a trial match. So you had your city versus country in a trial match, which sort of contributed to your state selection. Then New South Wales versus Queensland, which another trial match more or less to contribute towards Australian selection. Then of course, State of Origin changed that because suddenly it was pretty much the main players playing. There was no chance for young up and coming blokes to get through, and country players missed out because it was no longer. So all the country players went to the city, and so the whole thing has changed. There's not this pathway, if you like, through now to the representative honours. So,
Yeah.
So in that regard, state of origin isn't. I suppose it is about Australian selection, but go back to what
yeah,
you
I
said.
guess-
We still got to strengthen the Pacific Islands
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, I guess that raises the question in like 2025 and moving forward, even before 2025. I'm just saying 2025 because that's the now, and obviously it's not been done up until this point. But Australia is known as a multicultural country. Is maybe it time now to accept that state of origin isn't and shouldn't be viewed as a selection for kangaroos, Judy? I think for a long time it already hasn't been viewed that way, but I mean, let's make it official and just blow the gates off this thing. I mean, if you're born in New South Wales or Queensland, but you are still through family or heritage, whatever, able to represent New Zealand, why can't you do both? Why can't you do both? Or do we just want Australia to win everything 60 points to nil? But I don't understand. If you are eligible to represent both, why not do it? And talking about old mate, somebody in the chat said that it might have been Vanilla Blake that you were thinking of.
That was it.
Yep.
Yep.
Because what happens all the time in the rugby, and it still happens, not so much anymore. They've brought in rules to sort of counteract it a little bit, but it used to happen in the rugby union where all these like fringe selections for the All Blacks that were also able to represent Fiji, New Zealand would just pick them and cap them so that they couldn't be picked by the Pacific Island nations, which I thought was a bit dirty. Like if they had genuinely no interest in using these players long term, to just give them a cap so that they couldn't be picked elsewhere, I thought was a little dirty. They've kind of got ways around that. Now it's if they don't get, I believe if they don't get international representation after a certain number of years, they then become eligible. But then you see the situation where they just keep getting these random test matches, keep them in the system. But anyways, maybe it is time to just blow the doors off this thing. Grace has said apparently they are reviewing the rules this coming off season, which will make Origin players able to represent England or New Zealand. I'd say a bit late, but it is a reason Ponga has held off on the Kangaroos jersey. Well, that's good. I think personally it's probably time to start looking at that. I don't understand. I don't see the problem because if you're born in New South Wales and you're eligible to represent New South Wales, just because you might want to play for England in an international doesn't make you any less passionate about New South Wales, does it? Really?
And it's worked the other way as well over the years, hasn't it? With Adrian Lamb playing for Papua New Guinea and then being called into the Queensland State of Origin side.
Yeah, but
it can work both ways.
Papua New Guinea's in Queensland. That's why they made that song on YouTube. I'll show you after the stream if you haven't seen it already. Odd Popper, ahoy, mate. Just going back to the chat room quickly. Grace, ahoy. Footy, what if? Ahoy there, mate. John Michael, of course. Odd Poppet. John Michael, you have very, very distant cousins in Kazakhstan. There you go. You could represent Kazakhstan should they ever decide to play rugby league. So, H. Simon, question for you both. What match are you looking forward to in round 25 this upcoming weekend? I can't wait to see the Storm versus the Bulldogs. Well, both Friday night games are going to be pretty cool because I've got a lot on the line in that Panthers game. But I know that old Panther, you've had a mate of yours that you've had a chat with about the Bulldogs, right?
Yeah. This is a big weekend. I think that game against Storm will be a wake up call for Penrith anyway. But we were going to talk about Canterbury and their season, and I thought it'd be a good idea to go straight to the top. And an old schoolmate of mine followed the Bulldogs since 1964, and that was back in the days when they were still referred to as the Berries. I told you about, and and you felt that was pretty much along the same lines as Wars. I think, yeah,
pretty tame.
And Brian Riley's his name, and pretty knowledgeable bloke when it comes to rugby league, and so I respected what he was saying. He reckons that Canterbury's good enough to win the premiership, but in order to do that, they've got to beat the Storm and Penrith, or one or the other. And he reckons one win will put them into the top 4, and that's going to come up against the Sharks, I think, at the last round.
Yep.
They played the Sharks.
They do.
But this weekend, he reckons the Storm are going to win, and maybe that'll be the wake-up call Canterbury need. And just going back to our chat a little bit, one of his concerns is about the referees refereeing by stats. And as you said, levelling up penalties and things like that. But other than that, he reckons they're good enough to do it. So I'll take his word on that.
Yep. Yeah, well, I think they're pretty well locked in for a top 4 spot. Maybe not mathematically, the old mathematically asterisks, but yeah, they're pretty well locked in for a top 4 spot, I dare say, and anything can happen from there. But I do agree, absolutely. Anybody who is going to win this premiership pretty much has to beat both Panthers and the Storm in finals. So, assuming that it finishes the way that I'm anticipating it finishing, because it'll just likely fall that way. If all the cards fall into place the way that I expect them to, yeah, you're going to have to probably knock off both of these guys to on your way through to the premiership. So for me, H. Simon, definitely looking forward to both those Friday night games. I mean, I have been obviously not sold anywhere near as much as a lot of other people seem to be on the Raiders. And yeah, I think it's a bit of a reality check for Ricky's Green Goblins coming up, especially a Panthers team marching off the back of that defeat. I think you talk about teams who go on runs late in a season and you look back on their premiership runs, the Panthers for the past 4 years and the past 5 that they've made it into the grand final, and you look at their back end of a season, I guarantee you could go through those fixtures and you could pinpoint that was the loss that the team needed to have. And not just the Panthers. Go back through premiership runs all through history and look at the back end of the season. Like, yeah, I think if the Panthers didn't pick up a loss between now and the finals, they might have been in a little bit of trouble. Yeah, that was the loss that they certainly needed to have. I mean, it's an old saying, isn't it? The loss we needed to have. So, apparently my beard still looks tame compared to yours, old Panther. My beard still looks tame. H. Simon, you're not convinced Canberra can win the comp despite them holding top position on the ladder? Absolutely right, mate. Look, in all honesty, I rag on the Raiders a fair bit, as we know. For those who have joined me for the live games, we know that I rag on Ricky's Goblins a fair bit, even to the point where I call them Ricky's Green Goblins. And yeah, I don't think they're a premiership threat. They've kind of, I mean, Raiders supporters certainly don't like it when I say, but they've had a lot of luck this season in terms of there's been quite a few games like they've won off a fifth tackle kick with 79 minutes on the clock, and that ball could have bounced absolutely anywhere. The Storm got done dirty in their game against them. They were handed the win that night, and they've had a pretty soft draw from there on in. So, yeah, I think this is a real... And look, on the flip side of the coin, should the Raiders come out and prove me wrong and take the Panthers down to the wire even, I'll look at them a little bit differently. But up until this point, no, the Raiders have not shown me anything that suggests that they're a premiership threat. But they could. This is their opportunity. This is their litmus test. I could be turned around on this whole thing. Now, old Panther, where's it gone? Odd Poppet says Dan's beard still looks tame compared to the old Panthers.
Well, I've had 30 years head start.
Mine's longer. Yeah, mine comes. My beard's actually grown down so long, it looks like if I stand front on to the camera, it looks like I have no neck. I have to turn sideways so you can see how long my beard is and that I do actually have a neck.
Who was that English cricketer that had no neck?
Gladstone Small.
And that's it.
Gladstone Small. All right, there was another question in here somewhere. Grace says, have you blokes had a think about a potential Perth Bears team for 2027? Yeah, we have. We did talk about that on one of the previous episodes.
Yes.
They're having a hard time
And I've
getting
changed
people
my
at the moment.
mind.
Oh, have you? Okay.
Yeah. But I'm not going to put Appy in mine. It's going to be Harry Grant.
Ah, right. Wow. Harry, just go out there and do that for me. And
Exactly.
we'll be fine. Big Tino for Asua Malawi. He's got a get out clause with the Titans, but you know where I reckon he's going? Because if anyone's noticed, if anybody has noticed, Big Nelson is on the outer with the Melbourne Storm. I reckon that Craig Bellamy has gone, we're going to usher out Nelson and we're going to get me that bloke. Whatever we have to do, get me that bloke. I reckon do not be surprised if somewhere, and it won't necessarily be straight away, of course, but somewhere down the line, once Tino Fa'asua Malawi is on the open market, do not be surprised at all to see him in a purple jumper. That's my theory. And he'd go well there too. Oh boy, talk about a coach who's going to be able to get the most out of him week in, week out. You know, another one who I would love to see playing under Craig Bellamy is David Fafita. Talk about untapped potential. I reckon Craig Bellamy would get the most out of him. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But no, fantastic question. Odd Poppet, Perth Bears. You have family up in Geraldton. You may cheat on the Bunnies if Perth join the league. Well, when Perth join the league, Odd Poppet. When? I mean, it's happening. So you're going to ditch your Bunnies, are you? Odd Poppet, actually, I'll share the story with the old Panther if you don't mind, Odd Poppet. So Odd Poppet found the channel via the Six Nations, I want to say it was, the Six Nations Rugby Union streams. And he followed and joined us for all those Six Nations games. And so much so, he enjoyed his time here so much that he started checking out the NRL streams. He's like, I haven't watched rugby league for years and years and years, but since you're doing them, I'll come and hang out in the chat room. We've converted him back to a rugby league fan as well. And so he jumped on and supported the Bunnies. And probably wasn't the best season to have jumped on and supported the Bunnies. But yeah, so you're gonna ditch the Bunnies and go for the Perth Bears when they enter the competition. Mind you, are they going to be able to enter the competition with no team? And it's looking like that way at the moment, isn't it? There was actually a thing going around, and I know that it was a little bit of a joke, but it might have been one of those things that was like 99% joke with that 1% little seed of seriousness in behind it. But it kind of went around that they might have to merge with Manly.
Sure.
So
That'll go down well.
So that they can actually field a team. They might have to, yeah. Wouldn't that be a funny turn of events, though?
When that's why the Northern Eagles didn't survive.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. No, I'm well aware of that. That's why it's funny.
Hmm.
The circle of life. What else have we got here in the chat room? DJ Shack, ahoy, mate. Yeah, we won't know until their inception, of course. But it is unfortunate to hear that they're having trouble. Footy, what if the Storm could play NRL games in Tasmania in the future at the new Macquarie Point Stadium in Hobart when it opens in 2029? Well, I mean, let's be honest. The Melbourne Storm, it's I don't know if this is the right terminology that I'm using. Do feel free to correct me if you have something better. But I mean, the Melbourne Storm is a little bit of is vanity project the right way to say it of the NRL. It's more sort of like, hey, we can hold it, we can have a team in AFL country, in AFL land. We can have a team. Now they're successful on the field, but I mean, in terms of actual like true-blooded Melbourneites, really don't care, do they? Really? I mean, most of the people that follow the Storm in the footy are like expat Queenslanders, New South Wales, right? In my experiences. And you go down to Melbourne, like I'm going to Melbourne again coming up in November. But last couple of times I've been to Melbourne, you don't see Melbourne Storm stuff around the place. You see all the footy jerseys, the posters that are up in the streets, the banners. Like you walk down the streets of Brisbane and there's Bronx Nation. You don't see any Lions stuff. It's Broncos. But you go to Melbourne, you don't see any Storm stuff. It's this AFL team, that AFL team. I don't follow it, so I don't know who they are. But yeah, it's surviving. But I reckon if it were anywhere but Melbourne, they probably would have given up already on it. And that to me suggests, is vanity project the right terminology for me to be describing that? Am I in the ballpark? So, yeah, what say you, old Panther?
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair comment. There has been this bit of rivalry, hasn't there, between the NRL and the AFL. I think the AFL showing up the NRL a fair bit in the way that they've expanded, been able to be successful interstate. Even, it seems, on the Gold Coast, where not too many other sports have been able to survive.
No. Very little survives on the Gold Coast.
So it may be one of those things where we keep this going regardless, just to prove a point.
Yeah, that's right. Because they haven't really, and it's easy for me to stand here and say this, of course, but they haven't really developed any junior pathways. Like, they haven't invested into Melbourne to that level. It's more just like, we're going to share our resources from all around. Like, I don't know if they're still doing it, but like the Melbourne Storm under 19s, their junior system plays in the Queensland Cup, or at very least they used to. And I know that their main feeder club was at one point the Norths Devils. I don't know who it is anymore, but yeah, it was so funny seeing like the junior Queensland Cup system, and it's like all these Queensland teams and then Melbourne Storm. I'm like, what? I had to do a double take when I first saw that. And I'm like, they've got their teenage team playing in the Queensland Cup lower system. Like, so they haven't made any investment into, and this is not something that we really planned to talk about tonight, so we won't go too deeply into it. It's something that we need to research a little bit further. But yeah, just totally off the cuff, since the question was asked, yeah, I just, it makes sense that, okay, well, yeah, let's take them as the promotional tool. Since it doesn't matter in Melbourne anyway, it's not like the games have to be in Melbourne. Yeah, let's take it Hobart. I can't speak for the landscape in Tasmania, and I don't mean the actual landscape. I just mean the support. Would there be support for it? If there's equal or more support for a game of rugby league in Tasmania, do it. Yeah, send the Storm there. Yep, I don't see a problem with that at all. DJ Shack, have you talked about the crackdown on trainer intervention and the penalty milking? Yeah, we talked a fair bit about penalties and milking at the top of the stream. DJ Shack, absolutely. We didn't touch on the trainer stuff though. That was our last episode, but there has been some developments since then. They are investigating the rules and tightening the rules around when trainers can and can't be on the field, which they already have to a certain extent because there's the different shirt colors. There's the medical trainer, and he wears a yellow shirt, and there's just the general fitness trainer who wears a blue shirt or something, or maybe the other way around. Maybe flip those. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, so they've already, and there's different rules around when they can and can't enter play already, but now they're looking at tightening down that whole thing. Yeah. So, what have we done? Odd Poppet, you just realised the Rabbitohs are playing tomorrow. Yes. As a Welshman, this is the only time I want to see the Dragons lose. Yeah, fair enough. Well, I've got the Dragons winning tomorrow. Oh, sorry, Odd Poppet. My apologies. No, I do have the Dragons winning tomorrow. They're finishing the season strong. Yeah. Yeah, I was just going to quickly see how long we've done, old Panther, because I don't want to. 47 minutes. Okay, not too bad, because I don't want to keep you up. And is it toasted cheese night?
Sorry?
Are you having toasted cheese tonight? I don't want to keep you from your toasted cheese. No?
Depends when this runs.
What if I've heard the AFL considering a New Zealand team? Yeah, I can't speak for AFL, mate. I don't follow it at all. So much so I don't even hear it in the news. So that's what Michelle's for. She's all over the AFL stuff. That's her preferred sport. But yeah, she's not here tonight for this one. So, well, was there anything you would like to wrap up, old Panther? Are the Panthers going to win?
I just think I think this weekend is going to tell us a lot.
Yes,
as we said, well, you touched on it. We'll have an idea after this weekend just where Canberra and Penrith and Canterbury and the Storm are, in respect of their whole season. I think Penrith will knock Canberra off.
Yep.
Particularly if Canberra give away a start like they have been lately in the games, and and I think the Storm will probably knock off Canterbury, but as I said, that game against the Storm, that was a wake up call for Penrith. The 9 games straight they'd won to get to where they are now, and I think that'll relieve the pressure valve somewhat.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They were not going to win. They or anybody else were not going to win the premiership going into the finals on an unbeaten run. But going to the Panthers-Raiders game, I want to point this out. Okay. So the Panthers have obviously been hot on attack down that left edge, right? Milky Jenkins and Casey McLean, who's learnt a passing game as the weeks go on and on and on. Now, so the Panthers' left edge attack has been humming along. Jenkins and McLean, Panthers are scoring 51% of their tries across the season on that left edge.
51%.
51% left edge tries. Canberra Raiders, where do you think their defensive deficiency lies? The Canberra Raiders have conceded 52% of tries on their right edge defense.
Sounds good.
I have loaded up. I tell you what, Milky Jenkins, Casey McLean, and Isaac Tungo, who sometimes floats across between left and right, but I'm also thinking maybe Blaze Talangi. But I'm loading up on that left edge. Get on that left edge, maybe even the left edge second rower, whoever that ends up being on the night. Putting them in the try-scoring combo for 3+ tries. A combo, Jenkins, McLean, maybe the left edge front rower for 3+ tries combined. Because that way, like, you're not suggesting that each one of them is going to score a try. You're just saying, across this batch of 3 players I've picked, there will be 3 tries amongst them. So yeah, Canberra are very susceptible on that right edge, and the way that the Panthers' left edge attack is humming, yeah, I'm expecting 13+ win personally. But that's my hot tip. That's my hot betting tip. Not the 13+. That's just what I think. But the hot betting tip is load up on that Panthers left edge. Jenkins, McLean, the left edge, second rower, whoever that ends up being. I reckon we'll have a field day through that. Very, very suspect Raiders right edge defense. Yeah, DJ Shack says Timoko and Savage have been suspect, to say the very least, in defense. And that's always been like Xavier Savage is. That's why he was dumped in the first place. Like he's come on huge as far as attack goes, but yeah, not so much on defense. But anyways, we'll see. In terms of my team, what's my team up to this weekend? What are my guys up to this weekend? In terms of a schedule, I'm still not convinced about tomorrow night. I got a feeling the Dragons will probably win. But anyways, what's my team up to? Oh, they got the bye. Okay. Well, they're going to get 2 points. Nice. All right. Oh, Panther, was there anything else on your little note sheet there that you wanted to share, or?
Well, that was only a completely different topic that you were going to talk about, so we can leave that.
Oh, the comebacks. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sweet. We might have to well, we can touch on that if you like, because it might not be relevant come the end of this weekend, because the Wallabies might not be in a situation where they have to come back. Or could be a situation where the Springboks got their wake-up call and they won't drop off and think they've got the game won after 15 minutes. And to be fair, I did also say during the live commentary, for those who joined us on the stream, I did say after 15 minutes, stop the fight. Stop the fight. Show mercy. Well, they showed mercy. Too much mercy. They let the Wallabies come back and win. So obviously what we're talking about, for those who might have missed it, is in the Rugby Championship that kicked off over the course of last weekend. After 15 minutes or so, 15 or 18 minutes, South Africa were leading Australia by 22 points to 0. And then Australia decided to start playing, and they scored 38 unanswered points to ultimately win the game, 38 points to 22. And I asked the old Panther, I said, can you think of other, like, has there been a bigger comeback, other notable big comebacks like that? I mean, we saw the Panthers very nearly do it in their first grand final against the Storm in whenever it was, 2021, 2020, 2021. The Cameron Smith retirement special.
Yeah.
The Cameron Smith retirement special, 2020. The Panthers very nearly pulled it off. That would have been a monumental comeback, because that was about 24 points, I think. So, yeah, what other notable ones have
Well,
we?
I've got a few here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's hear them.
And these are easy to find. You just got to Google comebacks and the biggest comeback wins in the NRL. 2023, I think it said, the Dolphins trailed. Actually, I got a suspicion that might have been this year. Anyway,
Yep.
the Dolphins trailed the Titans 26-0 and won 28-26. Might just have to check the year on that one.
Yep.
2009, the Panthers trailed the Warriors 32-6 and ended up drawing the game 32-all. Penrith has appeared in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
1998, the Cowboys were down 26-0 against the Panthers and came back and won 36-28. And this year, Canterbury overcame a 20-point deficit to beat the Raiders, and the Roosters also a 20-point deficit to beat Canterbury. But the biggest grand final comeback was 2023, where Brisbane led Penrith 24-8 with 24-8 with 24 minutes remaining, and then they just dropped their guard.
They did, yeah. Well, people say the Nathan Cleary masterclass. I still say that was a Stephen Crichton masterclass.
Yeah,
personally, poor Stephen Crichton was probably player of the match in that game, and he goes so unrecognised for his efforts, because Nathan Cleary wasn't going to be able to do what he did if Stephen Crichton didn't get them into the positions that he got them more often than not.
That's right. I think we discussed something like this either during the week or last week, but your top players like Nathan, that they can't do the things they do unless the players around them do their job.
Yeah.
And I think with Stephen Crichton plus a few of the others did their job in that game.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
so I agree with you there.
UFC, ahoy, mate. Oh, sorry.
And Jack Cogger.
Jack Cogger, yeah.
Well, actually, Nathan Cleary, give him credit.
Nathan Cleary is the one that brought that up, yeah. UFC, ahoy, mate. He says, what a pleasant surprise. No emotion, just a logical, rational discussion. Love it.
Yeah, you didn't see what was going on inside me when you were talking there. There'll be a lot happens after the microphones close.
And DJ Shaq, Jack Cogger, of course.
Yes, Nathan Cleary credited him with the grand final win because it was Jack Cogger that showed him different things were happening on the field.
Robert M, ahoy, mate. Long-time channel member, Robert M. We did a whole piece on the Panthers Raiders clash coming up. Robert M, and my hot tip for those who might have missed it, Panthers left edge attack is humming along nicely. 51% of the Panthers tries have come down the left edge. Thomas Jenkins, Casey McLean, look for them to go well against a Raiders team who, conveniently enough, Raiders' right edge defense is very, very suspect. What did I say? 52% of the Raiders' tries have been leaked down the right edge. That's a scary stat if you're a Raiders supporter. The opposition you're playing, the opposing edge, is humming along nicely to the one that you've got your defensive deficiencies. Could be a big score racked up. Could be. But it is going to be the litmus test of the Canberra Raiders. If they put on a good performance, I'm not even saying if they win, if they put on a good performance and push the Panthers at least to the limit, if not get the victory for themselves, then they'll have made an almighty statement, because they've had a pretty soft draw up until now in recent weeks. So it will not just open my eyes to a genuine premiership contender, because I don't think they are at the moment. But a big performance in this game will certainly make me take notice and start taking them seriously, for one.
A little earlier in the chat, pointed out that the Raiders haven't played a top 8 team in 5 or 7 games.
Yeah, I would say maybe possibly even longer than that. But yeah, they've had. I described it, and I am prone to exaggeration when it comes to the Raiders. I openly admit that. But I think I've described it throughout the course of the year as being the softest draw in the history of the NRL. Like since in the NRL era, I've never seen even the Broncos when they get 42 home games this season haven't had it as easy as the Raiders have had this year. So yeah, I just think, I say that like the Sharks are usually on the receiving end of a pretty decent draw. Like the Sharks have got into the top 4 in recent seasons based off the fact of a soft finish to the draw. Like they go on a run where they haven't really had to play any top 8 teams. And what happens is we get to the finals and the real stuff starts. There's been no preparation. We've had all those soft games leading in and we look like powerhouses. Here we come up against now one of the big guns and just fold. So I've got a feeling that and it's just a prediction, but my prediction is that that's what will happen to the Raiders this year. They've had it so easy that, and even after this week, like they've got nothing else coming up. So for the Storm and the Bulldogs and the other teams competing for the minor premiership, they'll be hoping that the Panthers knock them off because the Raiders have got nobody left after this. If they get the win here, then that's, yeah, top spot's guaranteed for them, I say, unless they completely fall off a cliff. So that, yeah, this is their big game. Big game. And when you think about it, like they shouldn't have that much pressure on them, really. I think the only way that they would have pressure on them is if they put it on themselves. Because you're talking about a team that myself and every bookmaker on the planet expected to win the wooden spoon are still not being taken seriously as a premiership threat. These young blokes have got nothing to lose on Friday night. Nothing at all. They'll still be in the top 4, whether they win or lose. Whereas if the Panthers lose, they could find themselves on the brink of the 8 if they keep losing. So, yeah, the Raiders, they shouldn't go into this game with any pressure. The only pressure can come from within in this scenario, I think. So, yeah, they've got very little to lose in this, but they've got a lot to gain. They could gain my respect, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Well, that would make a big difference to their sponsorship arrangement. Well, people got wind of that.
I know, right? That they might even manage to land a marquee signing one of these years. I heard that Dan from Waste of World of the Sports endorses this team now. I might have to consider signing up. Robert M says, I see the top 8 staying the same. Yeah, I think really the only change that I have to it, the only change I really have is, oh, no, the Roosters are already in 8th. I was going to say the only change I would have is the Roosters, I think, will sneak into the 8 at the expense of the Dolphins. But, yeah, the Roosters are already in the 8 at the expense of the Dolphins. So there you go. I agree. Robert M says, question, Old Panther, when did the NRL start letting gambling companies start sponsoring
We'd have
teams?
to check that one out, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I think, well, that could be that could be one of our talking points for the next episode, Robert M, because I think we would need to do some research into that. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a photo of that. It's on video. I'm an idiot. I will take a photo of that and I will send it to the Old Panther so that we remember it, and we will make that a talking point in the next episode, Robert M, because I have lots of thoughts on that. Lots of thoughts.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
And I remember that there was a lot of controversy when this did start. I don't remember the year. But,
and any more talking points for next time? I'll throw it out to the chat room before we head off. Obviously, talking points may get what's the word, superseded by natural topical events that may happen. But yeah, do feel free to make some suggestions for talking points for the next Generations episode. DJ Shack says, of the three teams in fighting for that top four finish, the Bulldogs have unquestionably the toughest draw to the end of the season. Oh yeah, the Bulldogs are in a bad way. Well, they've got a good finish. They finished with the Sharks. So, UFC wants to know if you're aware, old Panther, that I said I would shave my head if the Raiders win the comp.
I think you're safe.
Yeah, me too. That's why I said it. And, by the way, UFC, you're wrong. I didn't say I would shave my head. I said I would shave my entire body.
A scary thought.
Yeah, well, I obviously wouldn't be able to live stream it on YouTube. We'd have to set up an OnlyFans account with exclusive Dan's body shaving content. Who knows? It might become a hit. There's got to be some weirdos out there that might be interested in seeing that.
Old Panther does.
What's that?
Remember the 36-28?
Ah, yep. In 1998, the North Queensland Cowboys stormed back from a 0-26 deficit to beat the Penrith Panthers 36-28 following a second half onslaught.
Yeah, we did mention that one.
Grace wants to know, if you two were to start your own teams, who would be your spine signings from all-time players? Great question, Grace. And yeah, we actually did that exact segment. We did that well, actually not exactly, because this question was from all-time players. We focused on only current players. But yeah, Grace, do feel free to check out the last episode of Generations. I might actually be able to get a link straight to it for you. That'd be the sensible thing to do, wouldn't it? Sensible thing to do would be to go to the channel and actually find the video and paste it into the chat room to save you having to go look for it. But yeah, we did a whole segment on sort of that question. Oh. Hey, quiet you. Yeah, so I'll copy that into the chat. There you go. So I've just posted a link in the chat room, Grace, and anybody else who might be interested in checking it out, because we're about to sign off here anyway. That was our last episode of Generations. Now, a lot of you may not have seen it because that last one we made members exclusive. So it wasn't available to the general public until after the fact. So there might be some new content in there that you haven't seen as yet. And we go ahead and we pick our spine for a new team, but it was only based on current players. Opening up all-time players is a whole new kettle of fish. Yeah. I'd like to see the old Panther name his current all-time players in a football team. So all-time best players in each position. That's definitely one not to be put on the spot for, I reckon. that requires some in-depth thought and analysis. But I'll tell you what, I'll take a photo of it because we may talk about it. We may talk about it in future. All right. Well, old Panther, I'll let you go.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for the chat room and good questions. And
yeah. Absolutely.
Got some ammo for later.
I think it works. Yeah, I think it works a lot better. We get some good talking points pop up when we actually do these live, as opposed to pre-recorded. We get some interesting stuff pop up in the chat. So, yes, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here for this one, another episode of Generations. It's been a blast, as always. Old Panther will be back in a fortnight for another episode of Generations, if we don't see him pop up between now and then for something. Who knows?
7-0.
And you'll be I mean, I'm sure you'll be doing the grand final again when the Panthers take on the Storm.
Yeah, I think that'd be worth a look at, wouldn't it? Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. And yeah, that link is there in the chat room. Actually, I'll pin it to the top if I can from this screen, which I can't. Okay, it's there. I'll paste it again. How about that? So this was our last episode that we did, and we talked about our fine player selections. Thank you so much, Waste of Water Sports crew. I will most likely see you tomorrow night for the Rabbitohs versus the Dragons. But if I decide that I'm not going to do that game, we're going to have a huge one on Friday. Blockbuster Friday night footy. Will the Panthers dominate as I expect, or will the Raiders earn my respect? It's all on the line. Forget about premierships. Forget about origin titles. This team could earn my respect. And what's greater than that, I ask. All right. Thank you so much. And, again, thank you so much, John Michael. I'll highlight this again before we head off. The $7.99 super chat. Thank you so much, mate. Cheers, everyone. And we will catch you next time.